Did you warm up the chicken?
Jack's got a little egg.
Yeah, chicks is a little
Sheldon.
Hi, everybody. So counting part 2, class format's gonna be basically the same. I don't know if we'll cook up a presentation for you guys to do this semester or not, that's be TBA, but same kind of format. The homework will be done on the online platform, we'll take the test on paper in person. The only change that I'm making is that, so for each homework part, there's like 5 participation points for like doing the assignment as a buffer. You guys remember that? So if it's a 5-point assignment on there and you got 1 wrong, instead of it being like an 80%, it was really like 9 out of 10 instead of 4 out of 8 or 4 out of 5. That 5 points is going to be the penalty for lateness. So you lose that if you're, more than the designated due period behind on that. So those of you that got real behind, this is me trying to incentivize you guys not to let that happen so the test stuff goes a little bit smoother. Because I noticed that the people that got real far behind, the tests were a little bit hit or miss. So this is me trying to incentivize you to stay on task a little bit better. Okay? But that's the only change as far as scoring goes. Everything else is be done the same way. So total points, test points are worth the same as homework points. So we have way more homework points. It's probably a 2-to-1 ratio is usually what it's worked out to be between what's due in the class that you have control over redoing and checking your answers on and all that stuff versus the chapter test. Okay? Those of you that are seniors, the final exam for this class will be dependent on you. Remember, if you have, a 93 or better and 5 or fewer absences, you are exempt from the final. It should be lovely if you guys could all get there for me. Oh, juniors, you guys are stuck doing, we'll figure out what you guys will do for a final exam. Will probably be some kind of project. I think there's just 3 of you. So that feels like probably the better solution than writing a 3-person final exam, and you're probably cool with that, I would assume. All right. Does everybody feel okay about formats and all that? Same story here. So just to kind of rehash or recap where we've been so far, this first part of the class is all focusing on a single owner business. So if you're the owner operator of a single business, you're not a corporation or you don't have shareholders or a joint ownership situation, you have a single owner. We've talked about how you record your finances, and then the last chapter we've been talking about how we report them, right? We built these worksheets that kind of is your summary of what's gone into your journal and then been transferred into your ledger. And then we create a worksheet that's a summary of what happened in that quarter. We're going to continue going on in chapter 7 and 8, doing other kinds of reporting that are kind of built off the worksheet, that was built off the ledger, that was built off the journal, that was built off, so just hat on a hat on a hat situation. So we're just kind of continuing on that. Does that, you guys feel recapped enough? I don't want to go into excruciating detail and do the whole first semester hopefully again here, but it's nice to have a little bit of context of remember what we have done so far and how this is fitting in, because I'm guessing nobody did any accounting in the 3 weeks we've had since the break. Okay, so let's get on going. So again, these last 2 chapters are really kind of generating reports. So when we report financial accounting information, The area of accounting that focuses on reporting information to external users is financial accounting. And the area of accounting that focuses on reporting information to internal users is managerial accounting. So the outer, external users would be like, if you have a shareholder or somebody that's the owner but doesn't really oversee the corporation, then where he has their own CEO that runs the business, and they're just like, it was my money, I hired somebody to run this thing though after I got it started and going. That would be like an external. Internal users would be like, you're reporting back to management on how this program was spending or how profitable this part of the business was, so they can make decisions on how to, use resources and if we need to hire more people or need a new facility or those sort of things. Everybody okay with what we write internal and external? So in 7.1, we're going to be talking about preparing an income statement. So this is basically going to be a report showing you like how profitable the business has been or not profitable the business has been in the last period. So the information we need to prepare this would come from the worksheet that we would have generated in chapter 6. So an example of what that worksheet might look like is something like this. And you see that they've omitted the top part of this worksheet because the only stuff that we care about is this bottom piece that has the money coming in and the expenses. It doesn't care about assets. So all we care about are revenue and expenses when generating an income statement. We don't care about assets. We're not talking about the value of the company. We're just talking about how much money we've made in the previous, period that we're considering. Everybody's okay? So we get the account titles. We're going to just pull right from the account title column of our worksheet. We're going to get the account balances from the debit and credit balances on the income statement column of our worksheet. So to write the income statement, you're going to look in the income statement columns for our debits and credits. Every income statement needs a heading. So you have the name of the corporation, income statement, the title of the report that you're writing, and then for the month ended in blah, 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 blah. So again, company title, report title, time period. Everybody's cool? Fairly easy. So an example of our income statement, you're going to have a category for revenue. That's what you start with. In this particular example, the only revenue we have is coming from the general sales category. You could have, again, depending on what your worksheet looked like, you could have multiple categories of sales, but typically we've seen just situations where there's been one. And then we have our expenses. So advertising expense, cash short and over, communication expense, equipment rental expense, insurance expense, miscellaneous expense, supply expense. And then we'll total all of those expenses up to get the total expense. And then the difference between sales and total expenses is our net. If that number is a positive, it's a net income. If that number was negative, it would be a net loss. So that title down there, net income, could be net loss if you spent more than you made. So just to review, the first thing you do is you write revenue, and you find all the account titles related to revenue from your worksheet, and you transfer in the account amount or the revenue amount for each of those. You write your expenses. and you go to your worksheet and list all the account titles for things related to an expense. You go to your worksheet, you record all the expense amounts. You draw your single line. And you write total expenses, sum up the expenses to write the total number. You calculate the net income by taking the difference of the sales, or the revenue total and the expense total. And you single rule, we write net income, and we record that net income value, and then we double rule at the end to show that we're finished. The report is complete. Overall, this should be relatively easy report. It's not confusing to do. I thought the worksheet was much more difficult to produce than this. Now, in addition, on the worksheet, or on our income statement, we also might be interested in looking at how much of our money is coming in, how much of our money is, or what percent of the money coming in had to go to expenses, and what part of that percent of that money coming in came as, loss or profit or whatever. So to do that, when we compare these things, we're going to be using what's called a financial ratio. And when we analyze those things, that's called a ratio analysis. And when we report on a financial statement as a percentage of another item on the same financial statement, that's called a vertical analysis. We'll show you it in the worksheet, or on the next slide, what that kind of looks like. So here is our income statement. You'll notice that we've added an additional column here that says percent of sales there at the end. So to calculate these percentage of sales, well, what percent of sales is sales? The first category is 100%, right? Always. To get the total expenses percent of sales, we just take that total expense number, 2,658, divide it by the total sales number, 5,820, round to one decimal point to get 45.7. Everybody okay? So just the denominator, the divisor of our division problem will always be that revenue total, so the total amount of sales. And we can do the same thing with the net income. So again, we just take that net income number and divide it by the sales number, write that as a percentage rounded to one decimal place. And that's it. Cool with that? So here's another example. Notice here that we have multiple revenue streams. We have two sales categories coming in. So on this income statement, notice we added a total revenue because there was more than one sales category, so we had to add those together. You guys see that? So again, revenue, the account titles for that, the amounts, all that information came from the worksheet that you'd be reading from. Totaled up the revenue, wrote the title, and notice here we have a net loss because our total expenses exceeded our total revenue. And notice in that case that the total expenses, the percent of sales was in excess of 100%, right? That'll happen, that's fine. That just tells you you're spending more than you're bringing in, i.e. you're ending up with a net loss. Is that okay? You record the net loss. So in accounting, we don't use a negative sign. We put it in parentheses, so that's how you denote a negative number. So if I take the 21,200 and divide it by or subtract it from the 24,127, that's going to be negative 2927, but I don't record that as a negative I put a parenthesis around it to indicate that it's a negative value. And then likewise, if I take that negative 2927 and divide it by the total revenue, that'll give me a negative percentage. I don't write the negative sign, I put it in a parenthesis, so that's why the 13.8% is in parentheses. Does everybody feel okay? So again, just like going through a little bit of the detail, it's not terribly complicated. I ran through the Cengage assignments earlier today and they were pretty easy. So the 4 sections of our income statement, we have a heading, right? The title, or the company, name of the report, the dates. We have a revenue section, an expenses section, and then the net income or loss at the very bottom, right? So there's 4 things that we need to make sure that we have categories for. The formula for calculating the total expenses ratio is the total expenses divided by the total revenue. Turn it into a percent, round to 1 decimal place. Always round to 1 decimal place. Net income ratio. It's the net income divided by the revenue total or the sales total. Either is fine. Made a percentage, round to 1 decimal place. No big deal, right? Okay. So that's that. Let's practice. So I think everybody's Cengage should still work. I went and you dropped the people that dropped, I weeded them out. So and if you had double usernames, I weeded those out. Like Joey, you had 2 usernames in there at one point. I think I killed the one that looked like was the less active of the 2. I don't remember if anybody else was in that same boat. But if you want to take out your tablet and fire up your Cengage and follow along while we run through the work together section, I invite you to do that. I think that would be great.
23 seconds.
Very good?
20.
Okay. So I'm going to hit the work together. If anybody needs a minute while they're logging in or getting things queued up and you're like, hey, can you wait for just a second while I get this going? Let me know and we can jog in place here for a minute. That's fine. No big deal. I thought I reset this. All right. So notice that this has 4 parts to it. So we have the list of accounts is taken from the hair care salon worksheet. For each account that appears on the income statement, indicate the section in which it should appear. For any account that does not appear on an income statement, select neither. Okay? So the only parts that should go on the income statement are revenue and expenses. So asset, blah, blah, like all this stuff is not a revenue or an expense, right? All the way down to sales, that's our first thing that's relevant. Everything else is irrelevant for an income statement anyways. Joey, what's up?
Wait, so prepaid insurance would be an expense?
Correct, that's an asset. The insurance expense, which is below, is an expense, but the prepaid insurance is an asset. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
So sales is a revenue, and then everything below sales is an expense. And it's nice because this is the same way we organize our worksheet. So it should be relatively easy to pick out the revenue and expenses, because revenue is just like the things coming from sales. Expenses are going to be everything after the things coming from sales. Should be pretty easy. Does everybody feel good on that? Okay. We'll grade that step. That looks good. And move on to the next one. My little typewriter. So here we're preparing our income. Oh boy. We're preparing our income statement. Let's make that bigger. I think it'll probably be easier to do this. So I have my worksheet up above, and then the thing I'm going to fill out. So first thing I'm going to do is write in the title. What's the first line of the title for my income statement? Name of the business, so that would be Hair Care Salon. And the second line should be, very good, the title of the report. In this case, that's an income statement. And the third line should be,
For month ended in.
yeah, for month ended in the same date as the worksheet. Everybody feel good? Okay. So our first category on our income statement is revenue. And the second category would be then expenses. What is our, if I look at our worksheet up here above, what am I looking for in terms of revenue? Sales, that's our only one, right? That's our only sales category, and I can tell because immediately after sales, it goes to expense things. And if I look at my worksheet, what is the amount for sales? Yeah, 5,800. Okay, now let's go to our expenses. So our first expense is, yep, advertising. So we'll record that, and the amount was $750. Our next expense is cash order or over. And that is a $3. Gotta keep track of it though, guys. The next expense is insurance. Oh boy, he can't type at all today, huh? Insurance expense. And the amount there is $610. Notice that was like a correction, but it still counts. The next one after insurance is miscellaneous. And the amount there is $167. The next one is supplies. Notice that that's another one of those correction amounts. And the amount there was $540. That's a lot of supplies. I guess it's hair care, so there's probably a lot of stuff. Ladies, you know more about that than I will. We're follically challenged. The last one is utilities.
It's 126.
And that's 300. Okay. And then what goes here at the bottom then? Total expenses. Is what we have down there. And if I add that all up, who's got their calculator handy that wants to do that for us?
2,370.
2370. Okay. Grade our step. That's it. Now we'll do our finish our income statement. So the last thing on our income statement is, it's going to be the net income or net loss in which one do I have here?
I think you have a net income.
I have a net income because the sales is greater than the expenses. And the difference between those two should be my net income. That's gonna be what? 3,430, is that right? Mental math is hard, guys. So that's that. Everybody feel good so far? And then the last piece is filling in the percent of sales. What's the easiest one to fill in? That one, because it's always gonna be 100%. Sales should be 100% of sales. To do the total expenses then, I'm going to do 2,370 divided by 5,800.
40.9.
Okay. So just want to point out, that sounds right. Notice that if you type 40.8 and check it, it's going to mark it wrong because you didn't round properly. So you got to be careful about the rounding here. It's got to be to one decimal place. So the answer should be 40.9, not 40.8. I know rounding, right, guys? It's like, oh, really? Yup, they care. I checked it. Played around to see like how, I wasn't sure how I had to round it, so I played around and like, okay, gotta have it this way. And then we do the same thing here.
59.1.
It should be 59.4. Grade that stuff. Uh-oh. It's because I,
51.
anyways, I don't care. I said the right thing, and then when I was talking and typing, I didn't do it right. And there we go. So the for you guys work together done. The on your own and application are basically the same process. It's just doing the same things. Again, I did them this morning to check to make sure it wasn't going to be like real weird or anything, or like confusing, like what exactly to do, or the format was going to be unusual. I think for the first day, this is good. Let's just finish this up. These three, the work together on your own and application, would be due by the end of the day on Friday. Now, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't just finish them here in class right now, but just to let you know that that's how the due date will work, like everything is due the next class period, except perhaps, you know, the like the study guide stuff where it's like there's a million problems to grind through, where it's like you might need more than one class period to kind of work through that stuff, because I know there's a lot of them.
It was 600 points. There was one of them, there was like 4 of the full journals.
Yeah.
They were like 30 lines each one.
Yeah.
It was really long.
I know. Just as a heads up, Chapter 7 has 2 sections in it, so we're going to be looking at test time fairly soon. Yeah, probably next week or the week after, or like beginning of the week after, depending if we have 2 days or 3 days. I think we only have 2 days next week, so it'll probably be the week after. Well, this class will meet 2 days, because we started on Tuesday, so we have Friday class, so we'll meet again Tuesday and Thursday. So we'll see how things are looking. It'll be end of next week or beginning of the week after. So we had 3 next week for sure. We're testing next week, but everybody feel good?
Sure.
All right. It's banging this stuff out, guys. Get her.
I'm just bang.
In the words of Larry the Cable Guy, get her done.
Oh yeah. Get her done.
Close that before things get too loud over there.